Hey, video game fans, this is Matt back for some more video game action, Battletech specifically. So it's been a long time since I've made a recording of Battletech. I lost my old save through a reinstallation mess up. Uh, I was having a good game too. I was working my way toward facing the clans and I lost my old game. After that, I created a new game and roughly started it roughly where that one got wiped out. I had to rebuild, obviously, a whole new team of mech warriors and moved my way through time. I got to a point, and currently that I did get to the point where the clans invaded, and I am doing pretty well with that. But here's the thing: I've had to make a lot of changes in my mechs, and I wanted to go through, and I went back in time. I loaded up an old save. I managed to find one prior to engaging the clan forces here in November of 3048 with my new team, the Wailing Widows, with my all-female mech warrior roster. Uh, Things are going well, but I wanted to show how many changes I've had to make since encountering the clan forces. So first off, I want to show what the current game state is. I'm currently in the center of the realm. I have allied. I believe this is. I'm pretty sure that my alliances have already been established. I have an alliance with the Draconis Combine and with the Capellan Confederation, as well as with Wolf's Dragoons and Outreach. And I had got myself here in the center core area because I was doing some missions and collecting some stuff. And the clans have arrived. Very tepidly, but they have shown up. This is a few months into it. When they first showed up, they only had a couple of worlds, and they're basically gobbling up worlds that are on the fringes. They have yet to properly drive themselves in to engage the inner sphere forces. Right now, there are just 4 clans out there. We have Clan Wolf, we have Jade Falcon, we have what are they called? I always forget what the bear ones are. Clan Ghost Bear, and the Smoke Jaguars. I am currently on my way. I see that they're out there, and I remember what happened after this. I couldn't find any save game that fit exactly where I wanted it. I wanted to get this is the game state right before I engaged them. But it turns out last week I purged a bunch of old saved games, trying to free up some space because it was just too much. It gets really cloggy. If you're not going to use those old save games, you might as well get rid of them. But I always managed to save a bunch of the ones at round numbers. So if I do want to go back in time, I can do that. But it turns out I don't have anything from the year 3049. So I had to go back to this older save in 3048. But it's perfect actually because the clans have arrived. I just haven't fought them yet. So I'm on my way there. Basically, I've chosen a world to go to where I'm going to fight, and then I move even closer, and then I move closer, and then eventually I come up here. And I think my first engagement was against Jade Falcon. Then I basically moved across the map from left to right here because I wanted to encounter each of the 4, see what they had to offer, manage to collect enough scraps to start building my own OmniMechs. And I wanted to show the game state of what my mechs looked like, because the mechs that I have in my mech bay here are essentially the same ones I've been using for the previous 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 years, relatively unchanged. So my mech warriors, I have a bunch of mech warriors that are specialized with the Highlander, with the Annihilator. Um, all of these mechs have somebody or more than one mech warrior who specializes in them. And this was every time I play a game, I want to make sure that I'm not just regurgitating and doing the same thing over and over again. So I wanted to, I'm not using any atlases in this gameplay because it's too easy just to fall back and use the atlas as your big mech. I really, really wanted to get a bunch of annihilators, and I did. Um, yeah, I'm still using a king crab. Yeah, I'm still using some bull sharks. Um, I had never really used the imp before, and I really took advantage of experimenting with it. I'm enjoying my plays with that. I have a couple of Marauder 2s. I'm enjoying those. The actual commander of my current group, that's their mech of choice. I have the Duboku. and eventually I will, in this playthrough, I will eventually acquire a Marauder. I'm currently, I think I'm short a few pieces to create one. The Daboku, according to this thing, they just trash it like it's absolute garbage. It's a laughing stock. I love the thing. I managed to my customized, well, the way I like to equip my mechs. It's a killer for its weight, considering it's not a 100-ton mech, but it packs firepower. It manages to fire all of its weapons all the time, doesn't overheat. It has tons and tons of kills. So I don't know what they were bashing the Daboku for. I know that the Mauler is better because the Mauler, they're essentially it's the same model with a new name. The Mauler has ferrofibrous armor, makes it more efficient defensively in terms of its armor. It's a better mech, and for a while I was using both in my roster because I had plenty of mech warriors that were specializing in the Daboku. Technically, some of them had Daboku specialists, some of them had Mauler specialists. Turns out the mech is the same. They're synonymous with each other, so the experience on one works with both. Anyway, eventually, though, I replaced this mech and just used the Mauler, which is what I'm currently using. I had 3 Highlanders at this time. Notice each one is a different variant. And I had 3 or 4 mech warriors in my roster who were specializing in it. I'd never really used the Highlander before. Every once in a while I'd use it, but it was like, well, if I'm in a playthrough and I have mech warriors who are specialized in other mechs, I just don't want to bring a new mech onto the platform as an experiment. So this time I actually tried. I went out and I got Highlanders early in the game and got a lot of mech warrior experience, and I really, really enjoy that design. And then the Hatamoto Chi, which is another one I'd recently acquired and was using it. I think this version of it is still using the ECM equipment. Yes, it is. Uh, it was kind of a niche mech for me. I mean, it's one of the lighter mechs in the roster. Didn't pack a lot of firepower. I wanted to make sure I took advantage of my ECM equipment that I had acquired, and so I'm basically using it as a stealth helper. It does have decent weaponry. It's one of the lighter mechs on my field. Obviously, all of these are assault mechs. Eventually, I pulled it out of the roster because it just wasn't. I'd lost the ECM equipment. It had been destroyed. I didn't have anything to replace it. And because it was a lighter weight mech that didn't have a lot of firepower, the Clan-Mechs tended to target it. And it kept getting knocked out of fights, so I just said, heck with it, I'm pulling it out. I have since brought it back, but it did spend several months off of my roster of mechs. So here's what I wanted to do. I want to go through and look at these mechs the way that I had them then, so you get an idea of what I was working with when I was facing off against clan or not inner sphere opponents. I mean, these things were kicking butt. I rarely had to put these in the shop. They were wiping out the inner sphere. They were wiping out the houses. They were wiping out mercenary units. They were wiping out pirates, and I wasn't having any problems at all. Then I started using these mechs against the clan forces, and all of a sudden they were spending a lot more time in the repair bay. They weren't getting destroyed, and I was still winning fights, but they were showing they did not have quite the tech needed to take on the clan forces and be as effective. So I wanted to examine. This is the game state right now. Is probably most of these mechs are identical to what I've been using for the previous 4 years in gameplay. 3 of the mechs I did not mention in my brief overview there were the Victor, the Stalker, and the Cyclops. And the reason I didn't is because these are 3 designs that I use in almost every gameplay that I make anymore. I'm going to start with the Victor here. So my Victor is basically my flanker sniper. It's not a big hitter. It has by far the lowest hit capacity of any of my mechs. But despite that, it gets a lot of kills. Why does it get a lot of kills? Well, it's incredibly mobile. Not just its movement speed, but the fact that it has a good jump jet system. I keep it on the fringes, flanking my opponents, trying to get it around behind my opponents. If they decide to turn around and face it, they're exposing their backside to all the rest of my heavy hitting mechs. So it does a good job of that. I mount 3 AC-2s in its right arm, and in the left torso I put in a long-range missile 10 system. This one happens to have an Artemis 4, so it's going to cluster the missiles more often. It does a good job. Does it pack a huge amount of firepower? No. But this is long range hitting capability, and it's constantly hitting mechs either on their flank or from behind. So it's dealing damage in weird places that more often than not take out enemy mechs. Does a really good job. It's a design that I use in almost every playthrough. Yes, on the lower levels, I have other mechs that do it, but it basically replaces the Phoenix Hawk and some of the other smaller mechs, but it does the exact same job. It just does it better because it has a lot more armor. My Stalker layout, I love it. The Stalker 3H variant has 6 missile hardpoints. This is my missile platform of choice, my fire support mech. It and I always equip it the same way. I put 2 LRM-15s, 2 LRM-10s, and 2 LRM-5s. That enables it to deal either 60 damage to fire 60 missiles against a single target, 30 missiles against 2 targets, or 20 missiles against 3 targets. It works really well. It's very heat efficient. If I fire all the missiles, it generates 54 heat. How much can I heat sink? 54. So unless I'm running at full speed or have lost a bunch of heat sinks, the thing never overheats. It's a steady fire from long range. So it's a great platform. It's the one I've always built. Once I figured out that I didn't want to use this in all of its energy weapons, the 3H mod variant is the one that has the missiles on it. Here's the thing: on before I have a Stalker, I'm perfectly content using the Archer. The Archer is an incredibly tough little powerhouse of a fire support mech. I do the same thing with it. Except I load it with a couple of LRM-20s and maybe supported by some LRM-5s. It deals out a lot of missile damage, and it's a tough mech. It takes a licking. Its missiles are in its torso instead of its arms, which means it's harder for it it's harder to knock its missile systems out. That's what I love about the Stalker too. The Stalker's it does have missiles in its arms, but it also mounts these big ones in its torso, giving it a nice solid hit. I hate using the longbow. Longbow's bigger; it's 95 tons, but I would rather use an Archer than a longbow because pound for pound, the Archer deals more damage and can take more hits than the longbow. And the Stalker completely eclipses it in every way, shape, and form. It's a lot more durable. When you want to put all those extra missiles on a longbow, the mech becomes so fragile, any shot can take it out. How do I know that? Because I find longbows to be one of the easiest assault mechs to knock out of any fight. 1 or 2 volleys is enough usually to take it out. So this is my fire support platform of choice. Then there's my Cyclops. So I'm using the HQ variant of the Cyclops, which has both the advanced command mod and the battle computer. So it's given bonuses to the rest of the Lance using that. It's a very high value target for enemies. It can pack a lot of punch. A lot of Cyclopses I face off against have AC-20s or PPCs or something on them. They can pack a punch. Mine doesn't. Yeah, its overall damage is pretty high, but it is very low range. I mount the thing with a bunch of short-range missiles in its torso, and the opposite arm and actually the arms are mounting an array of medium lasers. Its heat efficiency is bad, very bad, but here's the thing. Most of the time this thing isn't even shooting. Why? Because I mount the ECM equipment on this thing. So this thing is basically giving all of the other mechs in my Lance a bonus, and it's giving the cloak, the ECM cloak, to shield them. The only time it really ever fires its weapons is when an enemy mech breaches the defensive shield, and then it basically just goes on automatic attack to destroy the invader, to give us all our cloak back. Otherwise, it's basically just used on mop-up. So this is not a mech that I run around the battlefield stomping opponents with. It's trying to take advantage of all of its electronic equipment to keep my people safe. Now, when I supplement that ECM with the ECM with the incredibly fast Hatamoto Chi, they can combine to create a bigger defensive shield, which was very valuable in my initial encounters with the clan forces. But the clan mechs tended to be, they were fielding a lot of lighter weight mechs, which meant they were fast and acting earlier in the round. They just kept breaching my shields and knocking out my Hatamoto, so I just had to make some defensive adjustments. But these three mechs are three that I use in almost every playthrough since I've figured out, that I really, really like them. Most of the rest of these, with the exception of some of the bull shark and the king crab, I mean, you're just going to load up whatever kind of equipment on these you can. But the other ones are all kind of new to me. I'd never used a Hatamoto Chi before. I'd never really used the Highlander for any length of time. The Marauder 2 I usually got late in the game. I never got a chance to have anybody specialize with it. And Annihilators, I always try to get an Annihilator if I can and get it in my roster. But usually I have one Annihilator and like 4 Atlases. And I decided this time I didn't want to do that. So let's look at my Annihilators. All 4 of my Annihilators have different loadouts, and they're pretty much all specialized. And they all pack a big punch. At least 3 of them do. But the 4th one has its own little niche perks as well. So this one uses basically an all AC5 loadout. I'm using whatever I can salvage. So I have some Star League versions, I have some Inner Sphere normal versions, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Ultra AC5s, and that's it. No other supporting weapons. I put in the double heat sinks. It's got a heat bank to keep its heat down. Its heat efficiency isn't bad. It looks bad on here, but here's the thing. This thing can fire all of them and not have a problem. It just can't keep firing all of these in the double fire mode. So what I end up doing is once I turn 2 of these to single fire, I can do that for round after round after round without having to worry about heat too much. So it works pretty well on this layout. I just wanted an overwhelmingly large amount of shots. And this thing can do it because it's basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blasts, dealing a total of 450 damage. That's pretty good, and it's a very long range. This thing fires off 540 meters, which isn't as long as the AC2s, obviously, but still pretty good range for its hit capacity. It just requires direct, line of sight. And the durability of the mech is pretty good, too. I mean, the legs are always a little weak on my designs, but outside of that, it's got pretty good armor. I'm going to skip that one and go to this one because this one's pretty similar. Similar but different. This is basically my walking shotgun. The mech warrior who pilots its name is Shredder, or Shrapnel, and so this is kind of like my shrapnel version. So instead of the Ultra AC5s, this one's packing LB10Xs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. This thing deals a whopping 472 damage. Doesn't have near the range. It's only out to 450, but this thing just wipes mechs off the board. Its heat efficiency is a little better. It's, if its alpha strike is 50 and it heat sinks 42, that's pretty good. It just creeps up. This thing never overheats. Mainly because after it's fired a couple of rounds into a mech, the mech's destroyed. So it's going to have to spend a couple of rounds moving around the battlefield to get, to its next target. Armor is pretty good. Solid center with, the limbs taking a little bit off. Excellent mech. It's still in my roster today, although it's modified in its current form. I do have one Annihilator E variant, which is the energy variant. So where all of these guys are packing all of these ballistics, this thing has got an all energy loadout. And basically what this is an awesome on steroids. The awesome's claim to fame is it runs around with 3 PPCs. Oh, isn't that nice? This thing packs 4 PPCs plus a snub PPC in its nose, basically. That is a massive amount of damage, especially when you consider all of these are plus 10 damage. So instead of doing 50 damage, it's doing 60. The biggest problem with this one, besides its heat buildup, is that it tends to rock and roll a little too much. These PPCs cause all the recoil involved, cause it to it'll decline in its targeting ability if it doesn't take a round off every once in a while. But here's the thing. Despite the fact it's firing all those energy weapons, the heat efficiency is not that bad because if you notice, I've loaded it up with double heat sinks, with the heat bank, with an exchanger, any way I can to keep this thing as efficient as possible. It also has an anti-missile system in one of the arms. Pretty risky, but protects it from all those nasty little missile hits that the inner sphere mechs tend to do. And it has a TTS on it, boosting its targeting ability with the energy weapon. It doesn't need to use the snub PPC as often, so the 30 heat that it generates is often turned off. I use that to kind of finish off mechs or make one big burst. So you subtract 30 off of that alpha strike, and now we're talking in the 90s. That's not so bad. So yeah, I definitely want a mech warrior who specializes in the Annihilator, but also has the ability to flush the heat sinks. But otherwise, it's a pretty solid mech, and it does a lot of damage. Oh, I didn't even show you the damage. It deals 350 damage, a little less than my other two, but in one salvo, this thing can knock out almost any mech on the field if it hits it in the right way. Then there's my really specialty mech. This was an experiment of mine. I wanted to have this thing loaded up with Gauss rifles, but the Gauss rifles are just too dang heavy. I couldn't get the loadout that I wanted. But I saw that there's the light Gauss, so I generated a few of them using the console commands because I wanted to see how it worked. And this thing, despite the fact it only does 220 damage, it's dealing that 220 damage all the way out to 750 meters. So anything, basically what this guy does is sit up on a hill and blast anything that gets within its target. It gets a lot of kills because if these things happen to hit all in the torso or the head, or even a multiple shot on the same torso location, say goodnight, because that mech is destroyed. These things don't do as much damage as the full Gauss rifles, but they do a pretty dang good job. 55 damage a pop. I got 4 of them. Never runs out of ammo. You notice there isn't a single bonus heat sink in here. It's because these things deal only 3 heat each. So yeah, their firepower is massive considering they only generate 12 total heat. 12 total heat. It's a fun mech. Yeah, its overall firepower doesn't look great, but this thing gets a lot of kills. It gets a lot of kills. So those are my Annihilators. I'm not going to go through the King Crab. I mean, I'll just glance at it. The only kind of thing that I threw in this King Crab that I didn't have in the other ones, my other designs, is that it's using rotary machine guns, which I had recently acquired in salvage. Other than that, it's the same thing. It's mounting some long-range missiles. It's got some kind of an autocannon in its arms. Sometimes I put Gauss rifles in here. Sometimes I put, bigger AC-20s. But if I put AC-20s, then I usually have to gut the rest of it. This thing is generating, it's 536 damage. That's more than any of my Annihilators. But that damage is spread out between short-range weapons, long-range weapons, medium-range weapons. King Crab's great. Right now I don't have a mech warrior specialized in it, which is why it's not in my current roster. But this thing was brutal. At one time, I think I had 3 King Crabs in my roster, but I kept losing the mech warriors that were specialized in them. This is the last one. This thing lasted for another few years before I finally pulled it out of the roster. The other ones I'm probably not going to go over. I'm just going to briefly go over are my 2 bull sharks. So let's see. This is the standard bull shark with a thumper cannon, mounting a couple of Gauss rifles. This thing's got a good punch. Deals out 340 damage, which is okay. The medium range missile or lasers, LRM-10, and the Gauss rifles are really where it's at. That's its primary weapon. I wasn't finding I was getting a whole lot of use out of my thumper cannon though, so eventually I got rid of it. I kept the second one though, the one that does not mount the thumper. That enabled me to up its weapons significantly. So this one's firing 2 AC-20s. I wanted to make it different than the other mech. The other one had the Gauss rifles, so this one's using the AC-20s, which means it needs to get in really close to use them. And it doubled down on that by adding some short-range missiles as well as the long-range and the medium lasers. Basically, this thing spends all of its time flinging its long-range missiles until it can finally get within range to do its high damage. Oh, it also sports some AC-2s. I forgot about that. So yeah, it's got 2 AC-2s, 2 LRM-5s. That's its long-range damage. Once it gets within range of these guys, though, then it can really do some wicked damage. This version does 510 damage. You really need to see what my one does in my current playthrough, though. With all the clan tech I've attached to it, it's a very, very nice ride. All right, let's take a look at my imp. So this is another one of those Swiss Army knife mechs. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got LRMs. It's got a PPC. Those are the big hitters. It's also got supported by a couple of large lasers and a trio of medium lasers. Firepower 270. It's not nothing. It's not incredibly powerful, but it is one of the reasons why I took it out of my roster for a while. Its heat efficiency is great. Look at that. Heat sink's 93. Its alpha strike is 89. It probably means I could up the power, but I am firing 2 large lasers and a PPC. That's a lot. But you notice I have a lot of double heat sinks in here, plus normal ones and exchangers. This is one where I didn't have space. I could put in an extra double heat sink instead of all these singles, but all I ended up it ended up being not enough weight, and so I had to find things that were heavier to offset it, and it's a whole thing. It doesn't have enough hard points for me. I wish it had a few more hard points so I could put more weapons in it. It just doesn't have them. The only thing I don't have on here are its close support weapons, and that's because in this roster of mechs, these guys are absolutely devastating, so devastating at long range that nobody ever gets close enough for me to need short range weapons or support close combat weapons, I mean. All right, here's my 2 Marauder 2s. I wanted to, again, make them be distinctly different. This is using an all-energy loadout. It's firing 5 large lasers with plus 10 on them. So these things are dealing out the damage that a PPC does, but without the shaking, without the rocking and rolling of the violent shakes of the PPC, but at slightly less range as well. And 3 small lasers, which it only uses when it gets in close. This thing is ridiculously efficient only because I have so much heat things offsetting it that it makes it really hard to overheat. Really, you gotta remember, you have to subtract out the heat that those small lasers are doing because they're not being used very often. The 5 large lasers are actually under my heat sinking ability. So this thing can fire repeatedly, unless I'm on a desert world or a jungle world, any planet that's like it makes your heat sinks inefficient. On a neutral site, this thing can fire all 5 of those large lasers from the beginning of the fight to the end of the fight and never even get a blip on its heat. It's only when it gets in close enough that it's firing the 3 small lasers as well that the heat goes up at all. So it's ridiculously heat efficient and deals out a lot of damage. Now, my commander, this is my commander's personal mech, Lynx. Lynx is her call sign. And her special, I mean, she basically she's really good at targeting her marksmanship. When all 5 of these lasers all hit the center torso, say goodnight. It's a good mech. Yeah, you'll notice that all of my mechs have a little letter designation. I wanted to make sure that my mech warriors kept using the same mechs that I had that they got used to, and that their skill sets are best suited for. So each one of them are named after my mech warriors, and if there's one that multiple mech warriors are using, sometimes I'll extend it. So here's the other one I'm using. This one, instead of using the large lasers, is using 2 PPCs. The added heat buildup meant that I had to switch to machine guns instead of small lasers because they don't generate any heat. It's also supported with 2 Star League Defense Force ER medium lasers and a tag. I like having tags. But notice every spare space on this thing is basically geared towards heat sinking all of it. Its heat efficiency is good. Its alpha strike is only generating 68 heat, and it can dissipate 75. Of course, until it starts taking critical hits and starts knocking them out. Only does 236 damage is the bad part, plus the fact that these PPCs have to be turned off every once in a while to get rid of the penalties, but it's not as good of a mech. Eventually, when I started, there were other mechs I wanted to put into my roster. That was one of the first ones I got rid of. Let's take a look at my Daboku. It's a decent mech. I mean, on paper, this thing's dealing 283 damage. Doesn't seem like much, but you got to realize the heat efficiency on this thing is great. It completely heat sinks everything that it does for heat. And all of this damage is almost available right out the gate. It's got LB2Xs, which has long range striking capabilities. The extended range medium laser, the extended range large laser, and the long range missiles mean that this thing has got long range hitting capability right out the gate. Where a lot of my other mechs have to get in closer to even start firing, this thing's firing and firing and firing and firing all the way to the very end of the fight, and it gets a lot of kills. The only reason why it's not in my roster now is because I have a Mauler that has ferrofibrous armor and has basically, it's just more efficient. But this is a great mech. It rarely got knocked out of fights. It definitely dealt more, it knocked out more mechs than it ever got knocked out itself. And I might as well jump to my Hatamoto Chi, take a look at its total layout here. Again, this is not one of the higher damaging mechs in my roster at 271. It does have a PPC, a couple of extended range mediums, some short range missiles and machine guns because of the heat issues. It's a specialty mech. It's fast. It runs around the battlefield. It does not have jump jets. If it had jump jets, it would be a lot more valuable to me. I would use it more like a flanker, like my Victor. But it lacks jump jets, which makes it a little harder fit. Because it's one of my smaller mechs, enemies tend to target it more often, and it gets knocked out of a lot of fights, which is the reason why I took it out of circulation for a while, but I've since brought it back. Now let's look at my three Highlanders. Again, all three of them are going to have slightly different loadouts. So this guy is using some SRM6s and SRM4s on its left side. Its right arm has got the Ultra AC5, and its left or right torso's got a double large laser. This is a pretty good damage, 390, just under 400 damage. Heat efficiency is good, not great, but good. It's always a trade-off. If I want to have more heat sinks, then I have to cut into the armor or downgrade one of these lasers to a medium to offset it, and that's a problem. It's a solid hitter. All of these guys have jump jets. They're not blazingly fast, but the jump jets give them a little bit of a mobility advantage that my other mechs lack. Because all my mechs are assault mechs, most of them don't have any jump jets at all. The Marauders do, the Highlanders do, the Victor does. I think that's it. All the other ones are pretty much glued to the ground. This variant uses a Gauss rifle, Star League Defense Force era, an LRM-20, so it packs a bigger missile punch with the SRM-6 and medium lasers for short range combat. Decent, does less damage than the other model at only 265, but it does pretty good on the heat efficiency scale. The third one is the one that uses the more energy weapons. It doesn't have the ballistic mount that the other two have. So it's using a bi-laser, which is the equivalent of two large lasers jammed into one, with three medium lasers, a couple of small lasers. Yeah, this one generates a lot more heat. It's also packing the LRM-20 and an Artemis LRM-5. So this one's got a very good long-range hit capability. The bi-laser does need to be turned off every once in a while because it does generate a lot of heat, but other than that, its firepower is 296, again, right up under the 300 range, and its heat efficiency is not great. But if you have a mech warrior on this thing that has the ability to flush it, it'll extend it a little bit. It does have a heat bank, so it won't overheat too quickly. You just got to take a turn off every once in a while. That's it for my old roster. These are the mechs that I was using for years, with the exception of the Hatamoto Chi, which was a late comer to the party, as well as the second Marauder. Essentially, these were the mechs that I was using for 3 or 4 years before I met the clan forces. So let's go take a look at where my current save is, and we will see where I have not fought the Battle of Tukayyid yet. I'm waiting. That's going to be the next video. I don't know what's going to happen. I know that it is the critical fight that stopped the clan invasion, but I don't know what's involved with the actual mission. That'll be the next video. This is the prequel to that. So we are currently in February 15th of 3052. This is 2 full years of clan invasion, and actually an extra year because I was out on the periphery fighting clan forces before they invaded, because I was so anxious to get in the game. 3049 was pretty fun. So here's the current game state. I will show you what the startup map looks like. Um, yeah, they pretty much wiped out the Rosselhag Republic. We are currently here in Tukayyid, and here are the current forces. We now have two more uh, uh, clans involved in the fight. I have yet to engage in either one of them. I was over in this area of space when the other two were added. All of these the Clan Novacat planets are all the way over here, and I just didn't want to go out there because I knew Tukayyid was coming. So I started driving my way towards this direction. I didn't want to backtrack, and I have yet to engage the the Steel Vipers. Their worlds are inward of the Jade Falcon planets. They'll probably be the next ones I encounter, though. And Clan Wolf, man, they've gobbled up the big heartland of it all. I'm looking forward to this because I'm planning basically once this resolves, I'm gonna head over in this direction, and then I'm gonna work my way across. One, two, three, four, five, six. I want to encounter all six of them, acquiring more tech. My mech warriors have changed a lot. I lost a lot of them in a hurry. Unfortunately, they don't show you the days they got killed. They only tell you how many days. They show you the days, but they don't show you what year they got killed. But I lost a lot of them in a hurry. This was a bad month, or bad 100 days, or less than 100 days. I had lost the two mech warriors that I acquired on day one, and one of my original mech warriors in a very short succession. It was devastating. Since then, most of these have been post-clan invasion. I've lost a lot of mech warriors in my fight, a lot of experienced mech warriors. Another one of my original mech warriors had died. It was really, really painful. But I had to keep plugging on. Here is my current mech bay and how much it's changed. Still got 3 of my 4 annihilators. The Gauss rifle one is the one that I sent down. Not because it ever did poorly, but because I needed more space, and it just I couldn't send any of these 3 down because these 3 just generate way too much firepower. But so here we have got new mechs. We have several clan mechs. A few, most of them are OmniMechs, although some of them aren't. And I do have the Devastator, which is an Inner Sphere mech that I acquired pretty late. I finally was able to assemble it. That's the only new Inner Sphere mech that I've added to this roster. But even the existing mechs that are out here, they've all changed significantly, so I want to go over them. Let's start back down with our Victor. I made this thing a serious fighting threat. So I replaced the AC2s with an Ultra AC2, which basically replaced 2 of them, and a Clan Gauss rifle. Why the Clan version? Because it's smaller. Lighter weight just by a little, but instead of 15 tons, it's 12. So it's the same amount of weight as one of those light Gauss rifles, but it's dealing the full Gauss rifle damage of 75. So this thing packs a punch now. But the fact that I have an Ultra AC2, I could have easily just put in 3 Ultra AC2s and it would have doubled the firepower right there. But this significantly increases the damage capability. So this thing's now doing 195 damage. It's supported by an LRM 15 instead of the 10. This is all done at extremely long range, and it's getting more kills than it's ever gotten before. You got to realize when a clan rifle hits something, there's a decent chance it's going to blow the mech up just from it being hit. And so this thing is still doing the same role. It's flanking, trying to get behind the enemy position, but now it's packing a lot more firepower. It's a lot more fun to play, but it's always risky because the clan forces do like ganging up and wiping out units. So that thing is running on a razor's edge. My new Hatamoto Chi, which I've recently, very, very recently, within weeks, I've finally got this thing up and going again. Completely different layout, though. One, you'll notice I'm using a lot of clan double heat sinks. Whenever I can, I try to get them squeezed in. Makes it more efficient weight-wise. It's got the endo steel, this particular version. It's mounting 2 ER... it's mounting a pair of ER large lasers and a pair of ER medium lasers in its arms. It's got 2 rocket launcher 10s. This is a single fire missile system, basically. Very, very lightweight. It does its damage and then it's empty. Doesn't have to worry about ammo. So you choose a time and which to use them, and it's got two rotary machine guns. Heat efficiency is fantastic. You got to realize it's not even generating heat for those rocket launchers other than the turn that I use them, and then we're well under the heat sinking range. So, but despite the fact this doesn't seem like a scary mech, look at this. It's generating 350 damage. That's more than most of my other, mechs that we just recently looked at. There's absolutely nothing special about this. The only thing I've done really different than the old mech is I don't have the ECM on this. That did take up a lot of space and a lot of weight. And now I'm curious to see how this thing's going to perform going forward. I've only faced against the clan forces with it once so far. I'm looking forward to using it again. The Stalker. Look at what the Stalker upgrade did with Clan-Tech. So before, I remember I could fire 60 missiles. I had 2 LRM-15s, 2 LRM-10s, and 2 LRM-5s. Now I'm firing 2 LRM-20s and 4 LRM-15s. Do the math. That's 100 missiles. It was firing 60 before. It's firing 100 of them a round now. That's a lot of firepower. This thing is dishing out 400 maximum damage at long range and doesn't even need to have direct line of sight. Now, some trade-offs had to be made. This thing was very, very fragile. I had to balance that. I had 2 extra tons of ammo. I was so afraid of, because I was firing 100 instead of 60, that I was going to burn through the ammo and this thing's going to be running around on empty most of the fight. So I had a bunch of extra ammo, tons of ammo on here. I had to remove them because of 2 problems. One, it was so fragile it was getting knocked out of fights or it was losing systems, and I don't want to have to replace all this stuff every fight. And 2, it was generating way too much heat. Already this thing is not very heat efficient. You have to take some turns off where you're not firing the full gauntlet of missiles. And to counterbalance that, I had to put in a couple of extra heat sinks, add some more armor at the cost of 2 tons of ammo. I haven't run out of ammo with it yet, but I'm afraid that one long fight is all it's going to take before this thing's going to be out of ammo. It's a delicate balancing act. I also downgraded the TTS. I was using a TTS with a +3 accuracy. Now I'm using the one with +1 because it's lighter. So between that downgrade and the loss of the 2 tons of ammo, I was able to make it, I think, a little more fight efficient. But if it runs out of ammo, then I might have to readjust. But that's where it is right now. Very different than the old mech. Oh, if you do notice, I'm also using my Halloween colors. I like to use this big, bright, gaudy green in the skeleton outfits, so they all look like they're on trick-or-treating. Here's my Mauler, which is a replacement of the Daboku. Because it has ferrofibrous armor and extra large engine, it consumes up some spaces, but it makes it a heck of a lot more efficient defensively. It's got a lot more armor plates per ton. It's packing, again, I'm using some rocket launchers instead of standard missile launchers, so the heat efficiency, you got to subtract out this stuff from that. This thing generates 12 heat, and I think this does 9. So you subtract that out of its Alpha Strike heat, and it's not that bad. It's primarily fighting with some Ultra AC2s with its incredibly long range, some Ultra AC5s with slightly less range, and a Clan ER large laser, and of course a tag system to make the ballistics and the energy weapons have better targeting. Again, it packing a punch. That's 451 damage it's capable of. Now, again, you got to subtract out the 2 rocket launchers because that's a once and done missile system. But still, overall, it's doing a lot of damage. It's got, well, this one doesn't have near as much speed as the Daboku, but it's still a lot more mobile than my other mechs on paper, even though it's not showing it here. But it lacks jump jets. That's a severe flaw in the system. Because it's dealing out a lot of damage and it doesn't get knocked out of many fights, I'm going to keep it around. But if I lose the mech warriors that have specialized in the Mauler and Daboku, or if this thing just becomes a weak point, that'll be on the short list of mechs I might get rid of. So here's the survivor of my Highlanders. Really, this thing hasn't changed much. I'm using a Clan Gauss rifle instead of whatever it was using before. Clan LRM-20 and Clan LRM-10 because they're lighter weight than their inner sphere opponents, which gives me a lot more tonnage to play with. It's currently using some ER small lasers, but I could easily replace this with a tool like a chainsaw or an arc welder. I have a I downloaded a mod that has these little melee weapons um, as a fun alternative to using the higher heat sinking consuming small lasers. Not bad. Nothing really to write home about. It's doing 320 damage. Its heat efficiency isn't bad. It isn't bad. The Gauss rifle can basically fire all fight without having to worry about it because it doesn't shake like the autocannons and PPCs. But really, when you consider a lot of the heat problem is generated by the small lasers, which rarely even get used, it's very heat efficient. And it's got jump jets, so it's got a nice flexible mobility. My Cyclops. My Cyclops, I got rid of all of its old missile systems and replaced it with 4 rocket launchers. So each one of these are one fire. I realized I didn't need a lot of tonnage of missiles firing missiles because it rarely ever shot them. It only needs the ability to take out a single target on a single round at any given time. So rocket launchers work better. They take up some space, but they don't have a whole lot of tonnage. The extra tonnage I could pour into armor. So this thing is a lot more durable than the old Cyclops. It does firing with 5 medium lasers. I took out the 6th because of the heat issues and replaced it with a tag. So when it shoots, it's going to hit its target. But it's still doing what it's always done. It's got the battle computer, the advanced command mod, and it's the ECM equipment. So for the most part, it's the same. It's largely the rocket launchers that have changed on that. My Bull Shark. My Bull Shark is now using 2 Clan Ultra AC-20s. Supported by Clan Ultra AC2s, so it's got the long range and short range hit capabilities. I switched this from a long range. I got rid of all the long range missiles, replaced them with short range and medium lasers. The biggest problem this thing has is I can't sit it in the back of the the rear echelons, if you will, firing the AC2s. It just doesn't generate enough damage. This thing needs to get as close as it can until it gets to its critical mass. What is its critical mass, you ask? It looks like all the other ones. It has a maxed out firepower. 700 damage is what this thing is capable of. Twice as much as any other mech, basically, that I'm fielding. All the other ones we previously looked at any rate. But that's when it's firing all of these weapons at once. And it basically requires it to get within that 270 range. So the medium lasers and short range missiles can be fired. If I can get within 270 meters of a target, say goodnight, because this thing will wipe out anything. There isn't anything close to generating that much damage in my roster. My current Marauder is essentially the same as the old one. It's using large lasers. It is using because I wanted this for space concerns, I wanted a smaller weapon. This thing is dealing the same amount of damage as these guys at a longer range. It does generate 25 heat though, whereas these guys are only doing 18. I could easily replace all of these with those, but the heat efficiency would go off the charts. So I decided to leave most of the large lasers. I did replace the small lasers with clan versions because again, they're half the weight, and they have better range. So they get fired a lot more often. So its heat efficiency problem is a little more problematic, although this doesn't look like it, because I'm using so many heat sinks. If I didn't have I don't need to use clan double heat sinks if the standard double heat sinks can be used. I didn't have the tonnage to put in. Obviously, I could put in 3 clan ones in the same space as these, but I don't have the tonnage. Every ton that I make that kind of an adjustment with means I have to take out armor, and this thing needs its armor because it's a highly targeted mech. It does a nice spot of damage. What did I say the damage was on this? 325. Good damage. We just looked at my imp. Well, here's my newly updated imp. Replace the old missile launcher with an LR, a rocket launcher system. Still firing the PPC, but this one's a Clan ER PPC. Using the beefed up damage large lasers with a bunch of Clan medium pulses, and small pulses because I had them. They're relatively inefficient because they're heavier than the ER medium lasers, but tonnage wasn't my problem. It was space, and I had this heat issue. Look at all the double heat sinks this thing's got mounted, and it's still inefficient. It still has got a 40 gap. Again, you got to take out 12 of it because that's 12 heat that's only generating when this thing fires. And the small pulses are only good out to 120 meters. So as long as we're beyond that, this thing isn't, the heat isn't usually a problem. Not until it gets into close combat. Swiss Army knife, love that. My 3 Annihilators have all gotten kind of a clan update. So this guy, instead of using the standard Ultra AC5s it was using, it's now using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Ultra Clan 5s. Again, they are more efficient, but they do generate a little more heat, so the heat issue is a little more apparent. But as you can see, I got a lot of double heat sinks of one version or another, even some standard heat sinks. The armor was pretty close to maximum. I should probably change this up. I think I had a shortage the last time this thing went into the shop. I generally don't modify these things unless they get knocked out of a fight. Okay, I do have some clan ones, so I can actually replace that with that. Makes it the same heat sinking ability, but it gives me back a ton. So I can either put another one of those in here, or I could add another ton of armor, make this thing a little more durable. I think what I'm going to do is replace that too. Now we're at the same weight, more heat efficient. Still got 2 there and 1 there I could replace. But all they're going to do is give me more space that I don't have, because I don't have anything to put in that space anyway. I'm not going to mess around with lasers. This thing is an all ballistics loadout. That's good. I'm just going to go ahead and confirm that. Hey, wasn't planning on do that, but there it is.
Be too hard.
Okay, here's my LB10X model. So this one I had to replace the LB10X that was in this torso with a couple of 5s, which is actually good because they have longer range. So now I'm firing 3 10s and 2 5s. It's a lot more heat efficient. It's got a lot more armor. That's the key part of this. The armor, the mechs that I had that had weaker arms were losing their arms in almost every fight against the clan forces. So I had to beef up their armor. In order to do that, I had to lighten the load a little. So I downgraded, but actually it's doing more damage. It's 384 damage now. And because this is at longer range, makes it more effective, more useful in more combat situations. And this guy. So this guy actually got upgraded. So he's using Clan ERPPCs now, 4 of them. And I replaced the other space that was here with 2 snubs. So before he was firing with 4 plus 1, now he's firing 4 plus 2. Whopping 450 damage. But notice what else he's got equipped. Double heat sinks, 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 an exchanger, and a TTS. It's doing okay. Basically, he fires the 4 clan, the 4 ER PPCs every round. Every round. The only time he pulls in the 2 snubs is if he wants to finish off or make one big volley, and then he turns them off, and then we're in the green the rest of the way. The only time that the heat ever goes up is when he fires all 6 guns, and that doesn't happen very often. He can. If he needs to, he can do it, but he doesn't have to do it. Great mech. Okay, well that covers all of the old mechs that have been upgraded. Now let's look at what I have for new stuff. I should point out, with the exception of the Devastator, all the other ones are Clan-Mechs. All of them are OmniMechs, I think, except for the Mad Cat and I think the Kraken. Those are Clan-Mechs, and all the other ones are OmniMechs. I did have 3 more on here, and I brought them up, tried them out, sent them down. The Masakari I was using for a little bit. It pound for pound wasn't as good as the other mechs that were out here, so I got rid of it. The Kingfisher was great. It was basically on par with the Highlander. It was just as good as the Highlander. It had less firepower than my other mechs, though. It never got knocked out of a fight. It was mobile. It moved around the battlefield really well, did good damage. I didn't have anybody specializing. I had other mechs that I had more invested in, so until I lose my Highlander specialists or my Bull Shark specialist or whatever. I'm just going to keep it in the back. And I also had a second Daishi. So I had a Daishi Prime here, and then I had a Daishi B model. It was fine. Massive firepower, a lot of damage and everything. But again, I only had a few mech warriors who are still learning the Daishi. No reason to have multiple mechs in your roster until you have enough mech warriors to actually field them with experienced mechs. So let's take a look at what I do have on here. Man of War. This thing it's a striker. They use the exact same striker model, and the striker specialists is what you get when you specialize in the Man of War. This is a mobile mech. He moves around pretty fast, but he's got no jump jets. I have an array of medium lasers in that arm, so I can't quite get 6 medium lasers in there. It generates way too much heat, but I put 5 in there with a tag, which is great. It makes it more efficient. And on the opposite arm, I got the Clan Gauss rifle. Big damage, long range damage. So between the two of them, it's firing pretty much the whole fight. Got decent heat efficiency. Firepower isn't fantastic at 251. It's one of the lower damaging mechs. But there's really no real flaws to this mech. Its legs have too little armor. Its arms aren't as high as I wish they were. I might actually lower the armor in the torsos or rear and protect the arms a little more. But here's the thing, they're not getting targeted that much. This guy's pretty mobile. It's a worker. I have several mech warriors who are working on their specialization. It's a decent mech. This is one I've recently added. This is my most recent added OmniMech, and that or Clan-Mech, Marauder 2C. So it's 10 tons bigger than the original Marauder, and it's 15 tons less than the Inner Spheres version of the Marauder 2, which is why it has a 2C designation on it. I'm not sure where this thing's going to land. I have a PPC, one large laser, and on the other side we have 4 medium lasers, as well as a Streak SRM6 and a long-range machine gun. So this is a machine gun that goes out to 120 meters. Heat efficiency is good. Not great, but it's good. The heat bank keeps it from being atrocious. I wish I could drop the bigger heat sinks for clan versions, but where am I going to cut? I need the armor, or this thing's going to get knocked out of every fight. And I can't afford to. Yeah, it pretty much is where it's got to be for now. Firepower's good, 328. That's good. It doesn't quite have the punch that my all large laser loadout of its bigger brother has, but the PPC is good. It's basically only firing these at long range, and the whole left side of the mech isn't even getting used until you get within close range. Doesn't have jump jets. That's a big detriment. It's the biggest reason why this might have a short life expectancy. It's got decent firepower and decent weapons, but it doesn't have the flexibility of jump jets. Would have been a big boost. Let's see, what do we got? Gladiator. It's another Swiss Army knife mech, really. It's got all the same problems I have with any mech that's using AC-20. It needs to get in close to use the thing. It ends up firing those medium lasers every round, but it doesn't really get in until it gets in close. This is one of my better close mechs because it's using a jackhammer, which does 50 damage in short, basically point blank range. That's 40 meters. It's got to be right there next to another mech to use the thing. But it also triggers on like charge attacks, so that's good too. It does have some small pulses, so when it gets in close, this thing can pop a punch. Yeah, it says 410, but a lot of that damage is only good at very, very short range. But the AC-20 is also a short range weapon, so basically this thing uses its mobility to get in close. It does have jump jets. That is going to make this thing much, much easier to get in close and get in behind enemy mechs once the engagement happens. Not too bad. I like this design. Unlike the Man of War I took out of the lineup for a while, Gladiator, I have no intention of getting rid of it anytime soon. I don't like getting rid of mechs that have jump jets. Assault mechs with jump jets are rare. You don't want to get rid of them. The Kraken. This was a fun mech. So the first time I encountered one of these, I said, "Ooh, I got to get me one of those," because I saw what it did when it shot, and it was largely like my design, firing off a bunch of AC2s. What's the stock mode? Yeah, I'm basically using the stock version of it, with my own little twists. It had machine guns. I don't need machine guns. I'd rather make this thing more heat efficient. So this thing has 5 Ultra AC2s in both hands. That's 10 Ultra AC2s. Incredibly long range. Each one of them does a moderate amount of damage with very little heat, but collectively this thing does 600 damage. It's my second highest damaging mech, I believe, in my roster, at an incredibly long 810-meter range. Now, that generates a lot of heat, despite the fact individually they don't generate much heat. Collectively, they do. So I had to offset that 80 heat that it generates, and I'm only heat sinking 64 with what I have on here. Not much I can do about it. I need a lot of ammo. This thing can run out of ammo if it, in really long fights. Um, but for every extra ton of ammo, I have to get rid of either a heat sink or make it more fragile. It is by far my most fragile mech. This thing, this thing is ridiculously fragile. The armor on this thing is 840 armor plates. I don't have another mech in my roster that has less than 1,000. Oh, I'm sorry, the Victor's at 960, but I mean, the Victor isn't exactly known for its armor, but look at this. All these other mechs, even my Stalker has over 1,000 armor, and it used to have it below the line. So this thing is ridiculously fragile. Luckily, it has a long range weapon. All I got to do is keep it at very, very long range, keep it out of the direct line of fire, keep it close to my Cyclops, keep it close to anything that has any kind of protective ability like anti-missile systems. It'll keep it alive. This thing gets a lot of kills though, because that's a lot of damage at a long, long range. And let's look at my Daishi. It's my last mech in its Halloween colors. I love that. 2 Gauss rifles. Packs a very high long range punch. It has, this mech has a bonus to long range combat, I believe. Um, it's not squared in there. I'd have to look at it in a different mode, but it has a long range bonus for firing long range weapons. It's got a Clan LRM-10, which is also a long range weapon. And if it does get in closer, it's got some medium pulse and medium lasers, as well as a tag on both arms. So it packs a punch at all ranges. 416 damage, but still, it's less than my Kraken, and it's way less than my Bull Shark. But it's still decent mech, has good armor across the board. Uh, it, it's a good mech. I'm curious to see how it performs. I still don't have anybody with a lot of experience on it. My guess is the more experience you get, the better it's going to be. Yeah, there we go. The mech, it's got some quirks. Improved targeting at long range, +1 to hit enemies above 460. So it really wants to hit you at long range. And that's it. That's my roster. As you can see, my encounters with the clans have taught me a lot of lessons. I had to acquire their tech as quickly as I could, mount what I could, so all of a sudden my mechs are getting more efficient weapon-wise. But they were spending a lot of time, too much time in the mech bay, getting fixed after fights. I did lose a few mech warriors that I could have probably prevented, but it's it's almost like I'm playing early in the game again when my mechs were grossly inferior to my opponents. If my enemies, if the clans were fielding a field of assault mechs, I would be in trouble. But they're not. They're still throwing a lot of lighter and smaller weight mechs at me, and they're a lot easier to knock out. They're just hitting me a lot before I can do it. You know, they're acting early in the phase order, and so I'm taking it shorts a lot of times. And that's about it. I think that's where I'm going to stop. There's really nothing else to go over. I definitely want to get into this Tukayyid fight, and that'll be my next video, because this thing I knew was going to last a little bit going over everything. The next video is going to be whatever it is they're going to throw at me in this flashpoint. I'm dreading it in some ways because I know they're going to go back to using 4 mechs, and that's going to suck, but at least I'll be able to use some heavy mechs. that's not going to be a problem. Working for Comstar, that's new. I've only fought with them once in any of my missions so far. I'm usually fighting against them. Anyway, that's going to be my next video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.